and in color. How you doing, Ken?
Good.
We're just going to jump right in because we're going to go live right away because we're running late. So
No, we're not running late. We're perfect timing.
we're perfect timing. Look at that. How are you?
If what I've noticed is if I meet with the person who's interviewing me too early, then we start getting into all this dialogue stuff, and I'm like, no, this is the stuff that needs to be going live. Like we got to wait 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
Exactly. So we are live now, I believe.
Oh,
I believe I pushed the button early. Yes, and we're live. So
we are live.
Be careful. Welcome to Sunday Sessions, Ken.
Well, no, that's good to know because sometimes, like I said, we start talking about all this like wonderful, good, juicy, fun stuff to talk about, and then it's like, wait, we got to wait till we go live. So we're live.
Don't say it. We're live.
Welcome, everybody.
I hope everybody's having a great Sunday. Welcome to Sunday Sessions for March 21st. For those who don't know this young gentleman, I can say that because I got him by a decade or more, actually. His name is Ken Lewicki. Ken Lewicki is, everybody's heard me talk to him. I always point to my 3 certificates I've got on my wall behind me right here. Ken is my trainer, and he's also my mentor. If it wasn't for this gentleman, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. So Ken, before we start, I want to thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. You've changed my life, obviously. It's and changed it for the very good. But before I get all emotional, why don't we talk about Ken? Tell us who Ken is. Give us the Ken 101.
Yeah, so my name is Ken Lewicki, Lewicki, and you can find me on any social media platforms. Facebook, if you go to Ken Lewicki-channeling, that's my business page, and that's where it has all my events. So if you want like full out certification training on how to actually like do channeling, every possible thing you can imagine, I have 3 levels of that. It's super comprehensive. And I started. Do you want me to jump right into when I started?
Oh yeah, give us your journey.
So it all began in 2004, and I've been really pushing hard to, like, in the evenings and weekends as a full-time single father, this industry, and just like giving it my all, trying to get healthier, better. I have stacks of certificates and modalities in this industry. I love like healing modalities, all that kind of fun, cool stuff. So I was doing all that while I was a single father. And then I loved it so much that in 2009, I changed from the IT industry and I went back to school to get my life skills coaching diploma at Life Skills College in Edmonton. And then ever since then, I started like facilitating workshops. I started out working for the government, and I loved that so much. And it was so great, so wonderful. And then in the evenings and weekends, I would do like my own spiritual training. And because I just love teaching anything about spiritual stuff. So any kind of stuff that I would learn, or I'd create my own modalities, my own trainings, and then I would teach my students this. And then it was about 2014, 2015 when I started doing this full time. So this is what I do full time right now.
Now, what made you? When did you first start in your spiritual journey? What was that turning point for Ken? When did you go, you know what, it's time to really start opening up and changing what I'm doing?
Yeah, well, basically I'm a full-blown alcoholic. I had like hardcore alcohol drug problems, and in 2004 I had a major event that happened when my daughter was involved. It was very traumatic, and I remember getting down on my knees 2 days later because I was so beat up and just in a really, really bad spot. I got down on my knees and I just prayed and I asked for help, and I said, just help me. I want help. I want help. And ever since that day, I've never had a craving or any kind of desire at all to have alcohol or drugs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That was a big, big, big turning point in my life. And then I went to Alcoholics Anonymous. I worked the program really hard. I was like constantly, they kept talking about a God of your understanding and things like that. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I should be open to this, because if I want to stay sober, I have to, my way wasn't working. And so I did. And I started like searching out different spirituality, different modalities, different kind of religions and all that stuff. And it was a good exploration. And that's when I started seeking other healers, like alternative kind of healers.
Yeah.
And that got me interested in this. And then again, the trainers that I went to were phenomenal, have been phenomenal over the years. I've been trained by like, Zen Master and things like that, and just really, really cool people over the years. And they really inspired me. And that's really what got my journey going. So even though I was a full-time single father, working a full-time day job, I was still doing this in the evenings and weekends because I just wanted to get healthier. Like that's where it all started. But I've always been like, one of those helping kind of people. Always wanted to help people.
Yes.
And even in IT, when I was in IT, I was always customer support people, or I'd fly down to the different cities or, across Canada or United States, and I would help them with understanding how this automation systems work and how the like training them, I'd create manuals on technical manuals, things like that. And so that really gave me the foundation. And when I switched careers from IT into this, I always wanted to make like this woo-woo kind of stuff like really practical and useful.
the woo-hoo stuff.
Yeah, and normal and actual, like real, like because
Yes.
it is real. And one of the coolest things about like what I do, I teach people how to channel their spirit guides. And I've always felt and noticed and observed these things. But when I started this in 2004, we could improve it with the technology back then.
Right.
Now we could literally set up camera systems in your room, Kevin, and we could see your spirit guides physically around you.
Which is amazing to me.
Right. So I'd be like, your spirit guides are real, and they'd be like, sure, Ken, sure. Right. I'm like, no, they really are. And then now though, finally we have, like, you might've seen them on like those ghost hunter kind of shows, right? The technology is in its infancy, but as the next 5-10 years progress, we're going to be able to see them in more detail.
Right. Now you talk about spirit guides. I'm going to kind of take you back a little bit.
Yes.
When did Ken first realize that he had the ability to channel? When did that when was that aha moment for Ken?
Well, I knew as a child I could always see and feel, and I was talking to things, and my parents are like, "Oh, that's just Ken and his imaginary friend," right? Like we're not gonna count that, but because of society, that was beaten out of me really, really early.
Yes, of course.
But I wasn't one of these people that's supernaturally gifted. Like a lot of my students that I come across, I'm like, oh my goodness, you're so like naturally gifted. Let me help you hone those abilities and get them way further. But it's just cool to be working. I wasn't one of those people. I was one of those people where I would just like literally have to sit in silence, and for months and months and months and months and months, after sitting in silence and complete, just trying to quiet my mind, I would notice that there was a presence up in the room. And then months and months and months later, I would notice that presence would move over to the other side of the room. And then months and months and months later, I would notice that, oh wait, that's my deceased father who died in 2001.
Right.
And then months and months and months later, I would be able to have a little bit of a like sporadic, intermittent kind of conversation with him. And then months and months and months later, it'd be a bit clearer. And then this took many, many years for me to hone and develop these abilities. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I get a lot of students who are like, oh, well, like I'm not naturally gifted. I don't know if I could do this. I'm like, you can. I could, before, like I would be able to fill like a whole room of 50 people. And by the end of the 2 hours later, all 50 people would be channeling.
So have you ever come across somebody who really wanted to, because obviously you have to want to learn to be able to be taught. Have you ever come across anybody where you're just like, yeah, you know what? I love you, but go choose something else.
So there's something in our industry that I actually learned in 2009 when I switched careers, and it's called RWA, which stands for Ready, Willing, and Able.
Okay.
And so this isn't for people who need it. This is for people who want it.
Yeah. Okay.
And I do come across people who they're like, oh, can I just skip the first couple levels and go to the more advanced? I'm like, no. and because I found, like, I have tried that at the beginning, and they were so lost by time because like all the other students have learned the foundational stuff.
Right.
And it's okay. Like if they think they know it all, that's okay. If they think they're really good they don't need me. Right. And that's okay. I tell my students, I say, send your teachers to me, like do it. Cause I want to teach them how to really channel way better than they've ever been, like that they've known. Cause a lot of people are self-taught. And then if I can teach them how to really hone those abilities way beyond what they could possibly imagine, then they could be a way better teacher, trainer, and then they could help even more people at a way more advanced level, or healer, or whatever they're into. I have come across the odd time where the person just isn't a good fit, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. And I let them know. I'm totally transparent. I'm totally upfront with them. And sometimes they try level 1, and then, you know, they can tell it's not a good fit, and that's okay too.
Because you often hear in this industry is somebody who has the ability to channel has a gift. I don't think I have a gift. I think Ken taught me how to do something that anybody has the ability to do. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, it's similar to reading and writing. It's kind of like, you know, as a child, we weren't born to read and write, but we were taught it through grade school.
Okay.
Right? So you have this ability, you just have to be taught how to do it.
And as you progress, you get better at reading or writing.
That's right. That's right. It doesn't mean you're going to be the best, you know, reader, writer, and create #1 bestsellers. You might not, but you're going to be able to read and write adequately to really improve your life.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think that's a great analogy for like channeling. You don't have to become the best in the world, but you can develop it enough where it's going to make a huge, significant difference in all the areas of your life. Whether you want to do it for a living or not, that's irrelevant. You can still learn how to do it.
Oh, and it's going to help you no matter what, whether you decide to do it like I am, or you just decide to use it just to improve your life generally. It's
one of my like favorite things I say, I think to myself, I'm like, man, I really wish back in like, you know, high school, because I had like 98% average, like in all my courses except language arts. And I'm like, oh man, I really wish I learned that one really well, because that's the one I use in every single day of my life, like in writing emails and correspondence.
Yes.
Like manuals, like I use it constantly. And it's like, and then some people I come across and then after like my, let's say level 1 workshop, right? They're like, oh man, I wish I learned this like 30 years earlier. I'm like, just be grateful you're learning it now, because some people go their whole entire life and never learn this.
Oh, and Ken, I have said it to you. I'm 56 years old, and I've said it numerous times. I'm like, where were you 10 years ago, 15 years ago? I wouldn't have been ready. Right. 15 years ago. It took me till being 56 till I was ready to do what I'm doing.
And I've been teaching people from ages of like 15 all the way into their 90s.
That was going to be a question. Is there an age? Like, is there an age you won't teach?
Yeah, so
as far as young?
I work with adults primarily.
Of course.
Children, I just find they don't have the attention span. More of my focus is, there's people out there that work with children. I don't. But instead what I do is I work with the parents and the grandparents to help them, so that if their children or grandchildren come to them, then they can understand what's going on with them, and really on a spiritual level without. And one of the really important things about the way I teach is I make sure that I help the students emphasize that you don't have to have the fear around it. Like, yes, there's the spiritual stuff that is going on behind the scenes, but I teach you how to tune into what's going on behind the scenes, to know exactly who's around you, whether it's good or not good, and then how to stand in your power and take control of that situation no matter what, and create healthy boundaries with anything that's going on in the spirit realm without, you know, so there's not that fear. So this way, when you are speaking to like your children or grandchildren, you're not coming from a place of, ooh, I'm not sure what's going on. I'm kind of, this is, you know, things I've heard, and this is scary things I've experienced.
Yes, exactly.
It's more like, okay, now that I have the training, I can teach them from a place of strength and power and wisdom, and actually full understanding, not partial little bits of understanding.
Now, before we get too far into it, I'm going to kind of backtrack a little bit here, and I'm going to get you, because people, when I first started posting on my Facebook or any social media that I had taken courses in channeling, I had people messaging me on a constant basis saying, what is channeling? So when people ask you, what is channeling? Because we don't hear the word channeling. If you're not in the industry, you don't hear that word very often.
Yeah. So basically there's psychics, mediums, channelers, things like in that industry. I teach all of them, right? What a medium is a medium is somebody who specializes in talking with basically loved ones who've crossed over on the other side.
Right.
That's what they specialize in. What a channeler is a channeler does every possible thing you can imagine. So it can communicate with all types of souls. It can do past life stuff. A channeler can communicate with types of beings like angels, fairies, sprites, dragons, all those kinds of things, crystal divas, you name it, like every possible thing. And then my more advanced channeling workshops, I teach people how to do what's called medical mediumship, where they can scan the person and find the root cause of what's going on. So really kind of advanced channeling techniques. And then so that's what channeling is. Channeling is being able to communicate with every possible thing you can imagine.
Right.
And that's, more isn't always better. So I always tell my students as they progress through the workshops, is that if you find a niche that you really are passionate about and want to focus on, please do.
Right.
Don't think you have to do all the things.
So if you're a quote medium, do you just communicate with loved ones, or do you also communicate with spirit guides?
Well, that's a really good question. The average medium who has not taken my channeling workshops, that's what they'll do. They'll just communicate with the loved one and pass the messages. They are the medium or the intermediary between the loved one and the client who's paying the session. What I teach my students to do is much, much, much more advanced. And what I do is I purposely teach them how to get really, really good at channeling their own spirit guides.
Yes.
Because when you get really good at doing that, then you could follow their guidance, because they always have your highest and best interest in mind. And then in my level 2, then I teach them how to channel other people's spirit guides.
Right. So yes, I remember that. Yes.
Right. Yeah. And then I teach them how to do the mediumship, so that when they're talking to a loved one, if any sensitive information is coming through, they can check with the client's spirit guides first, whether they pass it on, and check with their own spirit guides first, whether they pass that information on, rather than just blindly, well, this is what I'm getting, this is what spirit is telling me, so I'm going to blah, blah, blah. No, you got to be careful. Some information can be harmful, and that loved one isn't always, they're not necessarily that person's spirit guide, so that they don't necessarily have their highest and best interest in mind, and telling them just anything blanket information can actually be detrimental to them.
Especially when you don't know the bigger picture.
Yes.
Yes. Now we talk about spirit guides, like everybody listening will know what a spirit guide is. I remember taking your first course, and you were going to get us to channel our spirit guide. And I was like, what the heck is this guy talking about, a spirit guide? Like, I was brought up religious. I thought I knew pretty much everything there was. And then I read all kinds of books. And then here's this Ken guy, and he's talking about spirit guides. I literally had never heard anything about a spirit guide till I took that channeling level 1. So for the lay person, the person who hasn't taken a course, how do you describe a spirit guide? What do they do? What's their purpose? Who are they?
I'll tell you what spirit guides are not. Spirit guides are not angels. Yes, angels exist. I teach you how to channel them in my more advanced channeling level 3 expert level. But they work on more usually universal level stuff. It doesn't mean they can't help humans here and there once in a while. Your spirit guides are actually members of your soul family. So when you die, when you cross back over, you'll go back to your soul family to reside in the Astro Realm with them.
Right.
But while you're incarnated, certain members of your soul family will help you and assist you while you're incarnated. My experience training thousands of people around the world, because I have an IT background, I watch for statistics and trends and all that, right? So my experience has been that most people have between 3 to 5 spirit guides during any one season of their life.
Right.
And your spirit guides are physical people. They're people like you and I, just in non-physical form.
Right.
They really are. They're people like you and I. So I like to use a lot of analogies. Like, imagine you're walking down a busy street in a downtown city, right? You have different people that are walking around you, and a lot of those people are just going to be like random souls, stuff like that. But some people are actually acquaintances, right?
Right.
But then the spirit guides would be like more like mentors. They would be like the people who would guide you. So 3 to 5 spirit guides during any season of your life. And each one has a different personality characteristics, attributes about them. So I teach people how to know which one of their guides is which, and how to hone in and really know their energy signatures is what I call it, because each one has their own unique energy signature. And then each one helps you with a different area of your life.
Right.
Right. So if you get really, when you practice your channeling, especially in my workshops, I'll get you, make sure that you get really, really good knowing which guide is which. Because I don't know about you, but when I first started, I couldn't really tell the difference between, one guide or the other. They just kind of like, I'm feeling this nudge or
Yes.
noticing this thing or kind of hearing, I think, a voice in my mind, but I can't tell if it's mine or my guides. I'll take you through all those steps to know and to be able to discern and differentiate between what's your stuff and what's coming from your guides.
Right. Okay.
And if it is coming from your guides, which one of your guides it is. But they really are, like, literally, if we had those camera systems set up in your room, we could see them, and they have different personalities about them. Like, my dad was really funny and goofy, like he was on Earth, right? He had that kind of funny sense of humor, and then other guides have different personalities and characteristics because they're human, just in non-physical form.
Right.
But they don't have a lot of that human baggage either because they operate in the Astro Realm. And at the same point, they're not perfect either. So they're still learning and growing and evolving just like we are. So my goal when I teach my students is to teach them, to help them out, like bridge the gap, work with your guides to try to make it easier for them, because it's actually really hard to be a spirit guide.
My spirit guide's like, oh, he nailed it. He's like, it's the hardest job, especially when you're Kevin's spirit guide. It's a full-time job.
So banging their head against the wall. Yeah.
Exactly. For 56 years, I've been banging my head against the wall.
Well, and that's one of the most one of the things that really fills my heart is when I hear people at whatever age they come to me and they're like, I knew I could do this all my life. And it wasn't until you that I really have finally been able to do it to this extent.
Yes. Yeah. Because, as you know my story, I used to have dreams of my dad
Right.
when I was a kid. And it wasn't until later in life that I realized, hold on, those weren't actual dreams. That was actually a visitation I had with my dad. So now it's kind of cool when I'm able to actually validate what's happened in the past and make a whole lot more sense. Before we move on from spirit guides, though, because I get asked.
One thing I want to say, though, is like I get a lot of people who come to me and they're like, well, I already channel.
Yes.
And I don't disagree with, like, I check in. I'm like, yeah, actually, you do legitimately, which is yay, like, way to go, right? But when I check, to them, they only channel like this much.
Yes.
Just a little bit. Whereas what I teach them to do is channel like way 1,000 times more than that.
Yes.
Way beyond any of that. But sometimes they don't know what they don't know. They think, well, I already channel. I'm like, yeah, you do. Okay, but let's teach you how to channel like 1,000 times more advanced than that. Like really hone in and get very specific, detailed, useful information from your guides and knowing which souls are around you at all time, whether they're good for you and if they're not, how to deal with that. Like super, super crazy, more advanced stuff. So there's a lot more to it than just, I think I'm channeling.
I think it's like picking up a hockey stick and being able to shoot the puck against your garage door. And I can play hockey. Well, not really. Let's put on a pair of skates and let's teach you the ins and outs of actually playing hockey. I use that analogy. Wayne Gretzky didn't become the greatest player to play the game because he had the gift. No, he practiced and he practiced and he practiced. Yeah. Then he became the greatest player to ever play the game.
Yeah, good analogy.
Before we leave channeling, before we leave spirit guides, you could have anywhere from 3 to 5 guides in any chapter of your life.
Yes.
You always have your main guide. He's with you from day one to when you cross over. As a general rule.
One of the things about spirituality that a lot of people get hung up on is they think there's this thing called absolutes where it's always like this or never like that. Instead, what I teach people to do is how to channel their guides to find out the idiosyncrasies or the exceptions. My experience has been that you can have a spirit guide that's with you for your entire life. A lot of people don't. They'll have guides that will be there for a certain season of their life.
Oh, okay.
And then one of those guides will step back. And then the next season of their life, a new one will come forward. And then in the next season of their life, the next guide might step back and then another guide might step forward and so on and so on. So oftentimes they do change. However, I have come across people where they literally have had a spirit guide with them since childhood. But then the other guides change along the way.
Right.
And I've had people that have brand new complete guides.
Oh, really? Okay. I've learned something new today. I always thought your main guide was with you from day one to when you cross back over, and your other 3 or 4 were interchangeable, I'll say.
I tell people very straight up, I'm like, don't believe anything I say. Don't believe anything anyone else says. Don't believe just blindly. Instead, what I want you to do is I want you to learn how to channel your guides really well, and I'll teach you how to do that. And then you get your answers from them and verify. Maybe I'm wrong, right?
Yeah.
Maybe everyone does have a guide for the rest of life. Maybe it's, I had a person who's like, oh, everyone is assigned an angel. And I'm checked and I'm like, no, that's not right. Like, that's not true, right? But some people believe that, and it sounds cool or whatever, right? But instead of just taking my word for it, take my courses and I'll teach you how to channel your guides really well. And then you can actually check and verify this stuff with them. Because one of the biggest problems that I had when I first like started, I was constantly just blindly believing these gurus or these people. And I don't know if some of them just made it up or maybe that's what they were taught, but it sounded really cool. It sounded really neat. But then I was called on and I was like people are like, no, Ken, check. You have the ability to check this with your guides. And then I would check and I'm like, oh man, like that's not right. That's not true. And so all these books and all these other things that I would I would just, now what I do is like, as amazing as the authors might be or the teachers might be, because no one's 100% perfect, no way, right?
It's impossible.
So what I'm doing is I'm just like, as I'm reading through, let's say a book, I'm like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. No, not quite. No, how about that? Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. And I'm checking with my guides along the way as I'm reading. And if something's not quite right, I'm like, okay, what could be more accurate? And I ask my guides and then they tell me and so on. But I don't just blindly believe this stuff anymore because it's not always true. And it's okay. Right? It's okay to check this stuff and validate. But how do I know if it's coming from me or my guides? I'll teach you that as well.
And it's funny because I'm going through a 6-month mentoring session with Ken. And so when we have our once a month, we sit for an hour and I'll be asking all kinds of questions. And Ken's favorite answer is, well, why don't you check? And I'm like, it's true. I mean, it's, and 9 times out of 10, the answer that they're giving me is the correct answer, and it's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Right. We kind of touched a little bit, or you did, on soul family in the astral realm. Can we expand on that a little bit? What is soul family?
Your soul family so think of like groups or clusters of souls. When you cross over, when you die, you'll go back to the Astro Realm, and that's where you'll reside. Your soul family will welcome you back to the Astro Realm. And they are members who've known you for literally eons, forever. Most of them you've incarnated with many times. You know them right now. There's certain members of your soul family who are currently incarnated, scattered around the planet right now on this earth, right? You've probably bumped into one in your lifetime, one or two like that are incarnated. You're like, I feel like I've known you forever. And we're not talking about someone you have just amazing chemistry with. It's like that deep knowing, like you've known them forever.
Oh, yeah.
If they truly are a member of your soul family, you literally have known them forever.
You literally have known them forever.
And so what the cool thing is when you do choose to incarnate and you're incarnated on this planet, those certain members of your spirit guides will help you and guide you, and they will be your spirit guides for certain seasons of your life. And it is to your best interest to follow their guidance, because they know why you've chosen to incarnate, what you want to get out of this lifetime, how you want to grow and evolve as a soul. They know all that stuff because they're members of your soul family.
Yes.
Right? So they do have your best interest in mind, and it is to your best interest to follow their guidance. One of the things that I teach my students is what I call immediate obedience. When you're getting a message, have you ever like had that time when you're like, oh no, I shouldn't do something, I know I shouldn't, I shouldn't do this anyways, and then afterwards you're like, dang it, I knew I shouldn't have done it, right? Or have you ever had the time when you're like, oh, I know I should do this, but you just kept putting it off or whatever, and then that opportunity passed?
Yes.
Right? Maybe it's someone you're meant to talk to, or, maybe it was something you're supposed to develop or some creative kind of thing, and you didn't do it, and then that opportunity passed, and you missed that window. Right? So that's where it's not just about, listening to your guides when it's convenient. It's actually just doing it right away or not doing it, depending on the circumstance, right? And just being like immediately listen to them, because they really do have your highest and best interest in mind. And this is one of the exceptions when I can confidently say they will always give you messages that are just in your highest and best interest.
Yes, makes sense. Now you say they send us messages. It's easy for you or I, who know how to channel and know how to receive those messages. If someone hasn't taken your course, and what advice, like what messages, how do they guides give messages to the average person? That sounds really silly. The average person, like we're not average.
First of all, what I would do is I would say, try to get some actual literally like training instead of trying to just wing it on your own for the next 5, 10, 20 years. You can, but it's going to be long and drawn out and arduous. What I really help people do is accelerate their channeling abilities really quick, really fast. One of the things that I would recommend is really watch for the subtleties. So yeah, you can look for signs and all that, but really the cool thing, like, like dimes or feathers or, repetition and stuff like that. But the cool thing is when you actually start listening to your guides, that stuff will go away because they're like, oh, we don't need to try to do this stuff anymore because you're actually listening to us directly from the source, from us, right? So oftentimes, like, there's 6 clairs, and the 6 clairs are clairvoyant, which is clear seeing, so you can get images in your mind.
Yes.
There's clairaudient, which is you can actually hear their voice in your mind, and I take you through a really cool process where I can help you differentiate between the difference of your own internal thoughts and the voices of each one of your guides, and they all do sound different.
Totally different.
The speed, the volume, the high pitch, low pitch, intonation or monotone, like there's a whole bunch of each one will be different.
Yes.
Right. And then that's clairaudient audio. And then there's clairsentient, and that's when you sense like their goosebumps and all that. But then there's also the other part of clairsentient is actually where you can feel your spirit guides' emotions, and then you interpret their emotions into a message.
Right.
So that's a really powerful clair. The other one is called Cognizant, and that's just like a clear knowing. It comes from your gut. Usually it's quick, it's fast, it's instant. It's like clear knowing. Cognizant. The word cognizant means knowing. And then another one is clairalience, which is clear smelling. You can actually smell your guide will give you a smell, and then you can interpret that smell into a message. So it's actually really cool. And then another one is clairgustance, which is clear tasting. The word gustance means tasting.
Right.
And you can taste, your guide will give you a taste, and then you could interpret that taste into a message. And that first, when you're trying to, like, it's very hard to discern or decipher, like they're very subtle, the messages and signs that you're getting from your guides. But over time with practice, you can really start to like widen that gap.
Yes.
And then after time of practicing, you'll be like, no, I definitely know that's from my spirit guides because of this. And I definitely know when it's me because of this, right? And you could definitely tell the difference. And that's a really powerful state to know, to be in, because then it doesn't mean that your thoughts and your ideas are bad or wrong, but it's when you want to hear from your guides. I'm like, okay, I just want to hear from you and no one else right now. What are you telling me, right?
Yes.
And then when your thoughts come up, you can check it with your guides, and they might say like, no, that's a crappy idea, or no, actually, that's a great idea. Let's expand upon that.
Where did you get that idea from? It wasn't from us. My guide's constant. It's like, no, that was your own idea. Put it to the side.
Yeah, don't pin it on us.
That's not that wasn't us. That's not us. You touched on something that I get a lot when I do a reading for my clients is, oh, I found a feather, or oh, I found a coin. Do loved ones or your spirit guides actually leave us hints, signals to let us know they're around us?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
Constantly. They're constantly giving us signs. I actually take my students through a brainstorming exercise. I'm like, what are some ways that your guides might want to get your attention? And they're like, this way, this way, this way, this way. And we come up with a whole entire list of ways. And that's just a small list because it's even more comprehensive than that. The thing, though, I really help them to discern is not always assuming that it's their guides.
Yes.
Sometimes you just,
find a feather.
Happen to see 11:11 because it happens twice a day, stuff like that.
Yes.
You just happen to glance on the clock, and that's the time on the clock, or whatever. But sometimes they're like, no, they legitimately try to give you these messages. Now, the cool thing is once you actually start following your spirit guides on a regular basis, and you're immediately just in sync with them and following what they're suggesting you as they're helping you navigate your life, the serendipities and the synchronicities and the flow and being like in that, you know, like you're in a river and everything's just smooth and flowing along. It's real. Like it happens, and it's not just sporadically. Like
Yes.
it's constant. It's like one after another after another after another, where things are just in flow, and then this and then that. And what's really cool is in my level 3, when I talk about like timelines and things like that, is what I do is I say, okay, now I want you to think, like actually feel into if you're in alignment or not, so that when you're not, then you know, oh wait, something's not quite right. Let's get me back in alignment.
Yes.
And then when if you go out of alignment again, you're like, oh, something's not right. Let's get me back into alignment, and just keep doing that to be in alignment with your spirit guides' help, so that you're fully in alignment, not just partially or a little bit, and you're in alignment in all the areas of your life. Because if there's one area of the life that is not as healthy or as good as or optimal as it could be, then it's going to affect the whole hand, the whole entire areas of your life.
Exactly.
Right? So sometimes what I need to do with my students is say, okay, I know you really want to do your spirituality stuff and all this spiritual stuff, but let's see what else is going on. What do you guys have to say about this area? Oh yeah, okay. What about this area? Oh yeah, okay. Get those areas of your life, you know, under control, get them in alignment, and watch the other areas take off.
Now, when we're talking spirit guides, just because we kind of brought that up there with the other areas of your life, spirit guides each have their own area of your life they're going to guide you on. Is there like a set 5 areas that, because we say there can be 3 to 5 guides at any chapter. So is there 5 areas of your life that you're...
There's overlap. There's obviously more than... There's hundreds and hundreds of areas of your life that we can get into, sub areas, subtopics. You know, so I give the analogy, like for example, let's say at work. So you're having troubles at work, and you might get 2 guides that come in. One guide helps you with your career and work or job or whatever, right? Or your business, right? So you have that one guide that comes in. But then at your work, you also have relationships that are going on there. So you might get your relationship guides. You might get these 2 guides who come in, who help you with work because it's related to career and also relationships, right?
Makes
so that's a great example. But oftentimes, like you'll have, so there's 2 main types of guides. There's your primary guide, and that's one that works with you most of the time in most areas of your life.
Right.
And then on the peripheral, on the edges, are your secondary guides, and they pop in from time to time to help you, support you, and guide you. But it's your main guide that works with you most of the time, the primary guide. So they can switch over time too. All the stuff that's happening isn't necessarily static. Depending on different seasons, your primary guide could switch with your secondary guide places, or your primary guide can back out, back away, and then another guide come in and be your primary guide, or one of your secondary guides can step back, and then another one of your soul and family members can become your secondary guide, and so on. So there's a lot of variables.
Yes.
But oftentimes your primary guide is the one that helps you with most areas of your life, and then your secondary guide will complement that.
Now, you mentioned in your level 3 channeling that you teach your students to do medical mediumship?
Yes, that's correct.
Can you kind of delve into that and kind of give us the 101 on what is medical mediumship? Because I think a lot of people misconstrue what that really is.
Yeah. So like basically it's where in level, what I do is the foundation of all my levels basically set you up for the next level.
Right.
So what I teach you to do in level 1 is I teach you how to channel your own self, like things like you're doing analysis on your chakras, and be able to channel your soul and be able to channel your higher self. You need to know what you're like, so that when you start working with others, then you could be like, okay, I know what I'm like, so I know what they're like and what's going on, right? And I can tell the difference. So that's why I start that in level 1. And then in level 1, we also I teach you how to channel your spirit guides, how to hone your different clair abilities, get those up right away, really quick, because that leads us into the super advanced stuff, which is channeling level 2, where I teach you how, like the really, really advanced techniques on how to extract very specific, detailed information from your guides, how to really know the different realms, like the Astro Realm, the animal spirit realm, and the in-between realm, and so then I get you really good at that. And the reason why I get you good at that is because what you need to know all the different souls. So I take you through exercises and activities to know all the different souls and the different types out there, which then leads us to level 3 is where I do teach medical mediumship, where I teach people how to scan and figure out where the root cause of whatever's going on with that person is or themselves.
Right.
And then I teach them things like lineage, on how to figure out where in the lineage it is, or where in the past life, because it could be this lifetime or it could be one of the previous past lifetimes. So I teach people how to delve into past lives, delve into lineage, and we also do a little bit of that in level 1 on purpose with themselves. So they're like, oh yeah, I remember when I did this to myself. Now I can relate to when I do it with others in level 3. So everything's built upon it. And then the final part of level 3 is where I teach you how to channel like fairy sprites, actually channel like real crystals, and then communicate with the crystal divas, celestial like planets, stars, things like that, really cool stuff. And then angels and archangels. And the reason why we do that is because you can also use that for medical mediumship. Right. And it's not a healing course, but you can use any of these modalities, any of these things that I teach you in whatever modalities or trainings you might already currently have.
Or decide to go into from your level 3, because you can also now, like after you finish level 3, you can take, I'm pointing to my certificate over here, Akashic Records. Akashic Records deals more and gets more detailed into past lives than what you would teach in level 3, even level 3 channeling.
That's right. So everything that I do has to do with like a soul on the soul level and things like that. Whereas Akashic Records, your Akashic Records is like your book of life, and everything you've ever experienced, felt, circumstance, anything you possibly imagine is written in that book of life. But
it must be one giant book.
Not just from this lifetime, but from all lifetimes.
Exactly.
And then when you learn properly how to access your Akashic Records, and then in more later advanced courses, you can learn how to change, because not everything in there is good, because sometimes you made vows and agreements and, from past lives, like, if I was a nun and I made a vow to, get rid of all my possessions, and I wonder why in this lifetime I can't make money, or keep money, that's could be related to that previous vow, right? And that's written in your Akashic Records. So the stuff that I teach all has to do with how to channel like yourself, your soul, your things that are all to do with that. But there's the missing component, which is the Akashic Records.
Right.
That's where you can learn that.
Now, you mentioned just real briefly there as you were going through your levels, and it's something we didn't talk about, but people hear about it all the time, is chakras. It's probably one of the most talked about. Oh, are your chakras cleared? And most people are like, chakras, huh?
Yeah.
What are chakras? What do they do? And how many of them do we have?
It's not a Reiki course that I teach, and I tell people that I'm straight up with them.
Yes.
So what I try to do is the last level 1 that I had, every single person either knows what Reiki is and have taken Reiki training and things like that, right? But what I try to do is I say, okay, put all that aside, pretend you know nothing to do with Reiki or chakras or anything like that. And let's just get you to see what's going on. So in general, there's 7 major chakras, starting from your crown all the way to your root, and there are different ones. And again, technology has caught up now where we can actually take an aura photography, or we can actually, with really highly sensitive, it's very expensive. It's like $2,000 to $3,000 for some of the really good equipment. The cheaper ones, the less expensive ones just won't cut it. They won't be able to get that good proper, but you can actually see the different chakras and what state they're in. And then with the Reiki healing, you can go and you can heal them so that they're in their optimal state.
Right.
But what I try to do with my students is I say, okay, put all your knowledge and everything you think you know about it, and let's just see what kind of state they're in now. And the reason I do that is because sometimes a lot of people are so busy, like, working on other people and this and that, they haven't actually taken the time to actually see what's going on with themselves. And so their chakras could be shot or out of alignment or all sorts of things going on with them, and they have no clue. They're clueless. And one of the biggest things that I emphasize in my workshops through all 3 levels is self-awareness, being aware when something's going on with yourself, because a lot of people just live their life oblivious to like, I don't know what's going on with me. I'm just going to like, kind of just live my life and not actually look inside and figure out what's going on with them.
Well, I remember pretty much, I think it was the first exercise you had us do in level 1 was, I believe, is it, we connected to our higher self first, or was it our soul first?
Yes. So there's the soul, there's a higher self, and the chakras,
Right.
depending on which order we could do it in. Yeah.
I'll never forget it, because I was like, my higher self, to me, my higher self has always been like your higher power. And I'm like, how do I have it was Ken who said, no, you have a higher self. And it was amazing when you actually learned how to connect and realize you actually have, every single one of us has a soul that is a thing. It's not just a concept. It's a thing.
Yeah.
Did you not say something about they have now proven when someone does cross over, the weight of their body changes?
Yeah. There's, I think, movies on it now. They've done studies repeatedly where at the moment of death, your body lightens. I think it's like 7 ounces or something like that. So that your soul actually contains weight.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest reasons I get I get my students to really know their soul really well. Yeah, which is really powerful.
It's huge.
Because that is the essence of who you are.
Yes.
Like it is the essence of who you are. When your physical body, your container dies, you will cross over to go back to the Astro Realm to be with your soul family. But when you come back, it's your soul. That's the essence of who you are. Will come back into a new container, a new body,
right,
as a baby or whatever, right? So when you come, I get you to get to know your soul really well. But then, like you said, there's this other component of you, which is called your higher self, which resides 1 foot above your head, which also resides in the Astro Realm, which is where your spirit guides reside.
Right.
And I basically give the analogy or the example, like it is like your own personal spirit guide. So it is an aspect of you.
Right.
That's a spirit guide component of you. And because it resides in the Astro Realm, which is where your spirit guides reside, it has that higher perspective and can see what's going on with you. So in my more advanced channeling techniques, what I do is I teach people how to have, like I call like the board of directors. So you're at the head of the board. It's your life. You get to decide and you have free will. So you come to the board and you want to make a decision about what's going on in your life. And you have your different spirit guides at that board meeting. And you're like, hey, well, what do you think? And they all give their different, well, have you considered this to do with your finances? Have you considered this to do with your relationships? Have you considered, okay, and then they give all their, and then you have your higher self there also at that board meeting. And then in the end, between once you basically bounce the ideas off the whole board meeting, you get the final say. You have free will. You can decide to say, screw you all, I'm going to do my own thing.
You have that veto power.
Yeah, good luck with that. Let me know how that works out. Or you can decide to follow their guidance, weighing in everything that's been discussed.
Right, of course. I had a train of thought that when you were discussing that, and now it's gone.
Your higher self or your soul, or?
Yeah. Oh, no, I know. You had brought up, it had nothing to do with that. It was my guide going, animal realm.
Yes.
That's something we get quite often, is when I come back, I want to be a butterfly. Or I think I was an eagle in a past life. Can an animal soul become a human soul, or can a human soul become an animal soul?
Yeah. So again, instead of just blindly believing what I say, I'll tell my students, check with your guides.
Yes.
So I want to really state that disclaimer right off the front. Is in general, the answer is no. A human soul is actually different, where we are built differently than other animals. And there's 3 realms, and there's the animal spirit realm, or the animal spirit realm, which is just for animals, like your pets, your cats, your dogs, all that. And I teach that in my animal communication training. So how to, like, that's basically, we'll spend 100% of the time in there. But also in my level 2, I'll have you actually connect with the animal spirit guide or a totem animal. So you'll actually get to know what the animal spirit realm is really like. And then there's the in-between realm, we'll talk about that. But there's the astral realm, which is where human souls reside. And they are completely different than an animal spirit realm. So sometimes over many, many thousands of years, an animal might be able to basically progress to a more evolved kind of species in the animal species.
Right.
But a human wouldn't go back the other way.
It would, yeah. It's trying to say I want to come back as a butterfly is a nice thought.
Again, check it with your spirit guides. I know there's a lot of myths and theologies around that.
Yes.
But once you learn it, like, again, don't just blindly believe anything people say. It might sound cool, sound neat, but that doesn't necessarily make it true.
Let's talk about your animal communication, because I know that's something that you're just starting teaching animal communication on a regular basis. Is that correct? Or is that something you've done?
Yeah, I've been teaching animal communication for several years now on a one-on-one basis. I'm actually going to be doing a full certification workshop where you will be a certified animal communicator, and it's going to use a lot of the concepts that will be the foundation in the channeling workshops, because you need to know all about your guides, your soul, what's going on, working with clients, how to do that, how to be the ethics around it. So I teach all that in level 2. And then the more advanced stuff, like if my dog is, has a pain or something's going on, you need to know about medical mediumship, how to scan and find out what's going on, what's really going on, not hypothetically what you think is going on.
Yes.
And then, so that's going to be a whole entire course on its own, with the requirement of having the channeling as the foundation, the prerequisite, because 70% of all the stuff that you need is in the channeling workshops. And then the other 30% will be strictly focused to just the animal communication. And we're going to go into so much detail. It's going to be insane. You will be among the top animal communicators in the world. I can confidently say that. And I do train people right now, my channeling students, how to do that. If you want to, if you have no channeling experience and you want to learn how to do this, I can do a one-on-one with you. But if you want to learn the more really, really advanced animal communication techniques, that's where you'll have to take my channeling workshops.
So take level 1, 2, and 3, then take your channeling. Now, when we're talking animal communication, is that communication just with animals that have crossed over, or is that with the rabbit that I just seen running down my alley?
Everything you could possibly imagine. So it will have to do with the current pets that you have right now. It can do with any kind of animal, whether it's in the zoo or in the wild, it doesn't matter, right? Any kind of living animal. And then, of course, ones who've crossed over. Right. And you will learn how to channel them. You will learn how to channel other people's pets who've crossed over. You'll be able to get to verify if the information is correct, all that stuff. You'll even learn if you've had past lives with these animals, if you've incarnated together many times, and how many times. I'll teach you actually how to do that. I'll teach you how to get to the root cause of the ailments and struggles that animal is going through. If they're having behavioral kind of stuff, I'll teach you how to channel, let's say, the living animals like your pets. I'll teach you how to channel them to figure out what's really going on and why they like certain things but not other things. And then also to communicate. Oftentimes the animals don't know themselves. Right. So it's kind of like a child, right? You take a toddler and they're all like throwing a hissy fit and they're mad about something and they're like, what's going on? And they don't even know sometimes, right? But with your spirit guides, with the animals, I'll teach you how to channel their spirit guides.
Oh, I could ask you a million questions just on this topic because it just opened up so much more. When will you be offering? Well, right now you offer the one-on-one courses to be able to communicate. When will you be offering
I'm actually releasing the curriculum. It's going to be, so look on my Facebook, Ken Lewicki Facebook events tab, the events tab on my Facebook channeling business page, and go there regularly and just look at the events tab and you can see all the workshops that I offer. It's coming. Like literally.
That is so exciting.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And so many people are going to love it, because how many people have pets? Everyone has pets. But it's not just their pets. Like, people want to do this for a living. But even if you don't, like, wouldn't it be cool to learn, right?
Well, yeah, it's just that the more you know, the better off you are, in my opinion. I know somebody out there is going to ask this question. So with animal communication, a lost pet, will that help find lost pets?
It can. I have several of my students who that's what they do. They can actually, I actually had a message just last week where a lady's like, I helped someone who had a lost pet and this is what I did. And that's more called remote viewing.
Okay.
and that's a little bit different. I don't really necessarily teach remote viewing on how to like remote view and figure out where exactly, but it is definitely a lot of my students do that, and they excel in it really well.
Oh, yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
So it is a topic. It is a topic that comes up.
Yeah, because I mean, you look on Facebook any day, and there's a lost pet somewhere. Just in Airdrie. I mean, we both, Ken and I, live in Airdrie, so it happens on a constant basis. But like I say, I could talk about animal communication now for, you got another hour and a half? Because seriously, it just opens up so much more. Anybody who's had a pet has lost a pet, and it's totally different losing a pet than losing a human loved one. Because a human loved one, I've communicated with Ken. I've talked to Ken. I've never communicated with my dog Stormy, my German Shepherd that we had to put down a year ago now, just coming up to a year ago. Yeah. We communicated verbally. I did, but they never communicated back, I don't think. But it would have been really cool to have that communication there. Yeah,
exactly. And you can do it while they're living, and then of course when they cross over, then you can continue that communication with them. They don't die.
Yeah, sorry, and I said that word again, didn't I? And you always correct me. They don't die. It's and I try to stay away from that.
It's fine. It's fine. I get what people mean.
It's eternal energy. We continue.
I even say it too. I say when you die, when you cross over, then you'll go back to the Astro Realm. Right?
Yes.
I say die because that's just the language that we have in the human language.
Exactly.
But yeah, absolutely. It's really, really powerful to be able to communicate with your deceased pets, to get a lot of closure, to understand really how they're like what happened in this when they were alive with you. And most of the time they're just like so glad and grateful that they were able to incarnate with you and spend those years with you.
Well, and that's one of the first things you did was you communicated with Stormy in level 1. I'll never forget it. It was so emotional, and it was because it was still raw at that time. Still is raw. And I remember it vividly, and I was like, okay, this guy is authentic. This is real. And we've talked about it before about being it's real. It is as real as people listening to us on Facebook or on YouTube. It's real.
One of the things that really fills my heart is whether it's a pet or a loved one, like a family member or something like that, or a friend who dies, and being able to be that medium, that intermediary, to pass along messages and to help with closure and understand like they're in a good place and they're doing well, and they want you to just move on with your life and live a great life, and they were honored that they were able to spend that time with you. It's such a feeling for me to when I do it with people, but also to train people by the thousands on how to do this.
Exactly. I tell my clients on a regular basis, I get just as much out of doing a session as they do, because it's just one of those. Ken's asked me, well, how does it make you feel? And I'm like, there's no words. It's it's just a feeling. It's just
and it's cool. Like this is a skill set you can literally learn.
Yes, right? That's
you just take it. Just trust it. Just go through the process, learn the skill sets, and you will be able to do this.
Now, you kind of saw my past, my social media in the past. I was political involvement. I have a lot of people kind of going, "Oh, Kevin, what have you done? Like, what Kool-Aid have you drank here? What's your answer to those skeptics? You're just preying on people's emotions. How do you answer that? How do you answer that skeptic?
Yeah, I don't.
Thank you.
I really don't. Like, I'm not, this isn't for people who need this. This is for people who want it.
Thank you.
And I'm not trying to pull a fast one over anybody's head. I get all my level 3 channeling students, once they've gone through level 1, level 2, level 3, and usually they've done a bunch of one-on-ones in between those 3 levels. They get to know me really well. I have people who 2-3 years later, they're still like messaging me. They're still taking my workshops and my trainings. They're still doing one-on-ones with me. And I'm in this for the long haul. So I'm not here to try to convince anybody. We have I was a hardcore skeptic way back in the day when I grew up, because that's just the society I grew up. I was like, if I can't see it, I don't believe it. And I'm like,
that's what we're told.
Nobody can convince me otherwise. And I thought this was all just hogwash. And, it's crazy because you know, 500 years ago or 100 years ago, we couldn't see beyond our eyes spectrum, like our spectrum, what we can see with our rainbow colors.
Right.
But now we have technology that can see beyond the infrared, one end of the spectrum,
Right.
and beyond the ultraviolet, the other end of the spectrum. It doesn't mean that never existed before. We just didn't have the technology to prove it. And now we see satellite pictures of the stars that are in infrared and others that are in the ultraviolet beyond what our eyes can see.
Exactly.
Right. And it's just the norm now. And one of the biggest reasons why I do what I do is because I want to make spirituality normal.
Thank you.
That's just everyday kind of life, right? I'm just a normal dude. I go to the gym. I work out with the big, buff guys. I do my yoga class. I go for runs. I live in the community and society. Have I raise a family, all that stuff. I'm just a normal dude, and I love spirituality, and I channel my guides, and I teach others people how to do that. And you can still have a normal kind of life, day-to-day life, and just rock this stuff and really have fun with it, and just be cool about it. Like, it doesn't have to be all this weird kind of thing. And the really neat thing too is, like, I feel like there's a day very soon in the next 5-10 years where this will be the norm. Everyone will just be channeling their guides, and this will be the norm. And the people that don't, they'll be the minority. And it's not that we'll bash them or put them down, but this will be the majority of the people, because this will be the new norm.
Right.
Right. And one of my goals is to literally make this the new norm. Like, you can just be at a grocery store having a conversation with somebody and be channeling, and they don't know you're not, like, making it all weird. You're just having, just having a conversation with them while you're channeling your guides, and that's okay. Or being at a workplace environment and channeling your guides, and that's okay. And that's what I used to do when I was
just
working in corporate.
normal. And it's become normal for me. It's just a normal thing. I mean, I'm kind of a normal guy. At least I like to think I'm halfway normal. Which brings me pretty much to my last question, because I want to try to keep just an hour, because I appreciate your time so much. Hollywood has glamorized what we do so much.
Yes.
If you could go back in time and change the perception, what's the one thing that you would change? Like, what would be the one or two or three? How would you advise the producers or directors to change that Hollywood?
Well, if I did advise them and they took my advice, they wouldn't sell any movies or TV shows. So the box office, the theaters would be empty, and it would be my fault. So
it would be boring.
The reality is, like, I teach people how to channel their guides, and I walk them through the process. And then at the end, I'll be like, this is channeling. This is what channeling is. Like, that, those subtleties that you're feeling, how you notice that your guide was here over here, and you were hearing their voice in your mind, and you could tell the difference between your thoughts and their voice. And they were giving you images in your mind. That's what channeling really is. It's not some big Hollywood thing. And it literally is those little subtleties. But then over time, as you practice honing your abilities, the gap widens, and you can definitely differentiate between your own stuff and your guides, right? And we've all been doing this our whole life.
Well, yeah.
Everybody channels. Like, have you ever, like, just kind of get this nudge or this goosebumps or these feelings to do something, right? That's what channeling is. That's what it is.
I tell my clients that on a regular basis.
Yeah. Have you ever been, like, with a friend, and then you just give this message, and they're like, how'd you know that? Like, that was the perfect thing to say to me. How did you know to say that? And they're like, I don't know.
Just said it.
Right? That's what channeling is. But instead of doing it, I will teach you how to do it intentionally, on purpose.
Yes.
Where you actually know, okay, is this coming from myself? Is it coming from my spirit guides? And if so, which guide? Or is it coming from one of their guides? Or is it coming from somewhere else? Or is it coming from their soul directly? Because yes, you can channel them directly.
Yeah.
And I'll teach you how to do all of that. Right? But very intentionally, on purpose.
If people want to take your course, where's the best place for them to look you up, to find you, to follow you? So when they're ready, they can jump in and take your course.
Any and every social media. The major social media is Ken Lewicki, Lewicki. Just search me up and send me a message. The best one on Facebook is my Facebook business page. So it's Ken Lewicki -channeling. And you can private message me there, send me a message, say I'm interested in your workshops, your trainings, all that. And also feel free to go through the different tabs, go through the reviews, the events tab, the services tab. And if any of those jump out at you, just go for it. Oftentimes people will be like, yeah, I was just drawn to you, and I just needed to book something with you. I needed to sign up for your workshops. I'm like, yeah. And I check, and I'm like, that was your guides.
Yeah.
And for following them.
How did I find you? I didn't know anybody that knew you, or at least I didn't think I knew anybody that knew you. It was a Facebook post that Allison, my girlfriend, saw, and she's like, "Oh, we should try this." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And literally, that's how this began back during the first part of 2020, middle part of 2020. So people, if you're really interested, I mean, I know I've done a lot of sessions with people, and they're like, "I would love to be able to do what you do." You can, and I tell people, please learn. I would love to have everybody I talk to learn to do what I do, because the world would become, and Ken was the one who said this to me one time, if we all learn to channel, man, what a perfect, beautiful world we would live in.
It would be much better than it is. And I've had people literally every single workshop that I've taught, I'll have people afterwards who've been like, I've been doing this for 10, 20, 30 years. And I learned more in your level 1 workshop than all those 30 years combined.
Exactly.
Like literally over and over and over. And that's just the beginning. Wait till they do level 2. And then that's just the beginning. Wait till they do level 3. And then from there, we do way more advanced stuff after level 3. Like it's super cool.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to when you start doing the group sessions for the, like, getting into animal communication, because, I'll be there. I will be there fast. Ken, I thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Actually, it's been an honor to have you on. We talk on a regular basis. So I would say keep in touch, but we talk on a regular basis anyways. Again, thank you. We will be in touch shortly.
Excellent. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Ken. I am going to